Leafs management has finally spoken out on the Toronto Maple Leafs after they collapsed once again in a first round series, and they had some shocking things to say. Brad Treliving specifically has kind of, said a lot of things, went in on some of the players, and it seems like changes could be coming. So I'm going to break down all those comments as well as some other things on this live stream. Welcome everybody for tuning in. This presser, I believe, is still on the go. We assume it's going to be wrapping up soon, but Darius, there's a lot of juicy stuff to touch on, and we're going to be touching on it as well in a video, multiple videos probably today, but to get the live reaction, it was an interesting one. There's definitely a lot of things to discuss, a lot of different talking points, but I think, how are you feeling about it all?
Lots to unravel, and I think it's going to unravel over the course of the day because obviously, like, they're still talking right now, but it's a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same questions at this point. Like, I feel like the main stuff I wanted to hear was at the beginning anyway. Just see and get their read on the season to see if it's the same thing that they're talking about, right? And the one thing that surprised me so far today, and I'm sure we'll get into it later in the stream and everyone will have their thoughts, is I feel like the language they're using is finally a little bit different. And I think that might be a good thing. I don't know if they're going to go in a different direction. It could be lip service. I don't know. But the way they're talking about things is a little bit different. And I liken it to, like, Brendan Shanahan said a couple things this morning already that reminds me of what Kyle Dubas was saying last year right before they let him go. But obviously there was a lot more reasons for that. But a lot of what he's saying lends to the fact that they might be actually open and willing to make changes because they understand that it's simply not good enough and people are not falling for what they're putting out anymore. It's not good enough. They have to win. And I like that Keith Pelly started with that. We have to win. Good is not good enough. And that's what everyone's been saying the last couple of days. So off to a hot start at least. So we'll see if they actually convert on anything because they're not giving any specifics. So we'll have to wait for that.
Yeah, Brad Treliving specifically kind of went in on a few of the players, which we can definitely get into as the stream goes along. And Shanahan's comments were a bit more annoying. They were a bit more blanketed. It seems like he's returning as his current role,
yep.
So
Yep.
he's not going to be moved or fired, which is interesting. But I mean, I guess that's fine. And then there's also obviously the coaching stuff to discuss, and a lot of it will be covered in videos. Leafs either cheap or overpay. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of comments here, and obviously started with, is it still, it's still going, is it, Darius?
They're still going.
Yeah, they're still going. So stuff is going to be coming out as we go along here. But what do you want to start with? I mean, we can start with the Joseph Wall stuff. We could start with some of the other things. There was a lot of comments up, Shane. Did you guys hear the presser? I tried watching Max my volume. I heard it a little
weird,
bit.
yeah.
Very
and
quiet,
whatever
though.
setup, yeah, like the setup on Treliving's mic too. Like you can't hear anything he was saying at first. It got a little bit better, but it's still the volume's very low. I agree with that.
Very low.
I don't know. We could start in a bunch of different places next.
Let's start with the
I
injuries.
think,
Let's start with the
yeah,
injuries.
the injury's a little bit puzzling in some way. Like the Joseph Wall thing, sprained back, like never never heard it put that way. Obviously, you use a more technical term, but sprained back just seems like a meme. Like it seemed funny to me. But that was a serious injury. Then you got a sprained MCL for Bobby McMahon. Makes sense as to why he was out for so long and didn't even look like he was really close to returning. I know he was skating, but you got to get into game action, so it makes sense. Nylander, obviously, we heard about the migraine thing, so he was dealing with that. Couldn't see out of his eyes. Obviously, can't play through that. So, and then Matthews had an illness. He got sick. I believe that was the timeline. He got sick after game 2, which would explain his play in the latter half of the series. And then he took a hit in game 4, and he was showing head injury symptoms. This was a weird explanation because Brad Treliving actually said, okay, here, I'm going to clarify some stuff for you. And then for me, there was no clarification on the Matthews thing because it seems like they didn't even have an answer. But it seemed like everything cleared up the morning of game 7, and he was able to play game 7, although he didn't look like himself still. But it sounded like he was still sick the whole time. So that's awful. Obviously, if you're sick, sucks to play. If you're taking hits in the playoffs, it's hard to do that when you're sick. I don't know how sick he was, but sounds like there wasn't really it sounds like they didn't even know what it was, to be honest. Like the whole thing. They just knew what they knew as it was going, but it still sounds like they didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah.
Weird.
It was a little bit weird. I'm out next year if they love the fans. People in the chat, as people are starting to flood in here, are we happy with how this press conference went? Simple yes or no. I feel like I'm okay with it. I mean, Brad Treliving specifically was saying that it's unacceptable how bad they've been at the team, and we'll talk about the changes and things too. There's obviously tons to go over, but are we happy with the comments? I liked Brad Treliving's comments. Shanahan's were a bit less. I liked them a little bit less, but there's only so much they can say in these things. But I guess the biggest takeaway from those injuries is that the Leafs got both unlucky. They got, I mean, you can blame preparation, I guess, or the staff, but I don't know. Thank you, Edward, for subscribing. Thank you. We appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just so weird. I mean, that Matthews injury had no clarification. Joseph Wall, I mean, he is becoming an injury-prone goalie a little bit, and Brad Living, yeah.
Brad Living alluded to that a little bit. He said it without saying it, really, that they have to look at certain things with him, right? So I thought that was a very interesting comment. That was weird.
Yeah, no opinion. I don't know what they said. Yeah, I love a video covering all of it in depth as well. But
yeah. Well, we'll try and tell you guys here too what they said. There was a lot of,
yeah,
I mean, Keefe Pelly to start. We could start at the top, really, Nick. I mean, Keefe Pelly came on first. They all gave like an address at the beginning. Keefe Pelly basically said that good is not good enough. He's here to build a championship team. They want to win a championship here. He's committed to that. That's the goal. That's the idea. He's only been here a month, but that's like his goal for this. Shanahan staying on board. Keefe Pelly called Shanahan a champion and that he is the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So he'll continue to be that until his contract runs out next year. And I'm sure they'll reevaluate that because Shanahan I believe he only has a year left on his deal. Yeah. So I'm sure they'll reevaluate that next year. And I have to say, a lot of what Shanahan says, I cannot take at face value because he said certain things and then they don't convert in previous years. We're going to get it done, all this stuff. So whatever. Brad Living is new. He's been here a year. They all took accountability this morning. That's one thing I think was the number one thing that they had to do, take accountability. I loved 95% of what Brad Living said this morning. He identified all the problems that we can see with our eyes. He said we have to work on certain things in those areas. And a lot of the problems are things that don't take skill to fix, right? You just have to adapt and change the culture. So I loved like 95% of what he said this morning because it's like he's reading off of a piece of paper that we've all written on with our, with what we think is wrong. So I loved what he said this morning, at least.
And then Brad Living went out and basically just said that, I mean, he said a lot of things. He said it starts obviously from the top and then about changes a little bit. They asked him a pretty hard question, basically saying, we've been saying the same thing. Obviously, Brad Living's new, but we've been saying it for 8 years now, however long, that this is not going to work. Nothing's changed. And then Brad Living basically said, well, Brad Living only has 11 months under his belt here to evaluate the team, which is also what he said, which is fair enough to him. And he's going to see what changes need to be made, whether that's internally, externally. I don't know if there was, I may have missed it, about the coaching staff aside from Sheldon Keefe being gone. I don't know if they even asked that. That could be coming out as we're speaking, but do you know if they did, Darius? I missed the first few minutes of it.
Say that again, sorry? What was
like the power play coaching and things like that?
He did address that. Brad Living came out and said that our special teams were terrible and our goaltending was questionable at best, basically.
Okay, so hopefully that means they're going to fire the other guys.
But that's exactly, and they said they're going to reevaluate that yesterday, right? They said, okay, we made the decision on Keefe to move on, and they got to reevaluate the rest of the coaching staff. Something I thought was interesting from Shane. Thanks for tuning in again, Shane. Sure. All season, you've been the best. They know they can't trade Marner. And they just fired Keefe, so they have to keep Shanahan as the scapegoat. I thought that's an interesting point because I wonder now if they're playing musical chairs with who the problem is, right? Who's next? Okay, Shanahan loses his job next. Who's left now? Fix the problem on the ice. Like we all know it's in the room. We all know it at this point. It's on the players. The Sheldon Keefe video, now that I've slept on it, it almost seems like this is your problem now. I identified the problems. Maybe you couldn't get them across the line with the messaging either, but it almost seemed like he was on the beach. Yeah, he seemed like he was at his cottage. Like, I'm out. Like, I identified the problems. They couldn't convert. So, I keep bringing it back to the Amazon documentary. We were talking about this off camera a little bit, Nick, yesterday. If you go back and watch, you can see Keefe said the exact same things in the documentary that Tree Living said this morning. We're not scoring the way we have to in the playoffs. We're not. We're one of the worst teams at doing that. Our special teams are terrible. The goaltending was questionable, right? All these things. And it just snowballed year after year. They haven't changed it. So, I like the fact that Shanahan came out this morning and did say, okay, maybe it's time for some changes, right? Yeah. But are they going to convert on that? Yeah, we understand it's time for changes. Can we do that? Let's do that.
And obviously, I mean, Brad also mentioned, or maybe it was Shanahan as well, that like defense is a little bit tighter, obviously, in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It's harder to score, but like there's no excuse. And that's something that they kept saying, that it's unacceptable, is what Brad Living said a bunch of times, which is true, that I think one of the reporters gave a pretty crazy stat, and I don't know the exact stat, but it was something about not being able to score, which is something the Leafs haven't been able to do, especially in Game 7s. Like, the team is just unable to score goals in the playoffs, so it doesn't really matter what else they have, whether it's great goaltending, elite defense. That being said, they need to upgrade both of those things, and it seems like management is finally. I don't even like to say that because we've heard this for the past few years, but they did fire Keefe, and it is one of the more, and this is Keith Pelly's first year as well as Brad Treliving. So I like to lean on the side that changes are going to happen. Brad does not seem happy with the way the team played. Obviously, he's only been here 11 months. He wasn't going to do a crazy, turnover, which is also maybe a reason that lends credence to the fact that maybe they keep Marner around because, I mean, Treliving, he only has had 11 months to look at some of the things there.
Yeah, and the thing with Treliving this morning though, with what he said so far, because I'm gonna have to go back and kind of sit on it too and dissect everything everyone's saying. To me, honestly, it just seems like he was telling me exactly what I saw, which is so refreshing. We don't get that as Leaf fans. We never do. We've been gaslit for 8 years. It's true. For 8 years you've been told, no, stay with us here. It's gonna get better. Don't worry. Patience. These things happen to other teams. No, we can see with our eyes. We're watching the games. Like we can see these things, and I feel like he came out and said, all right, I know these are issues that we have to solve. Like the thing about scoring on rebounds, they're one of the worst teams on scoring on rebounds in the entire league, and that's the number one way to score in the playoffs, right? Like it's the little things you have to address. And yes, they upped their scoring, right? He did mention that too. They're a higher scoring team now, but they're not scoring the right ways. They don't know how to score properly in the playoffs. It's a big difference. So, well, I don't know. I really don't know what to make of all of this yet because. Like I said, I wonder if some of it is lip service too. Oh yeah, we have to be better. The whole thing, we'll address the accountabilities on me. Ticket prices will be up next year, revenues will be up, and all this stuff, and the product on the ice change, right? Yeah.
So. I'll ask the chat. Do you guys want Shanahan, I guess, fired, or like, would you have preferred? Would you have preferred if Shanahan was on the team or not on the? I guess not a part. Let me say this: not in the same position as he was last year and for the years prior. Because it feels like a lot of people in the chat, Darius, are not happy with Shanahan.
Not vibing with Shanahan.
So I'm curious to see. I guess you say yes or no. Do you want his position moved? Maybe even, fire ever. But do you want his position moved? It's obviously not going to happen this year. Could happen the year after. 8 years of getting fed. Yeah, that's the issue, right? It's really hard to take these things at face value when they've been, I guess. I'm sure they're trying to make the team the best they can. It's just They haven't changed anything. I feel like most people are in agreement with that. He should be gone. And I kind of was too, just out of principle again. But you guys bring up a decent point about the fall guy thing. I mean, if they're not going to trade Marner, maybe they want to keep
somebody as a scapegoat, right? Like who's next in the line, right? And you just keep going down the line. And people will say, it's happened like with the Leafs like this for years. It's not entirely true. You go through eras and the Leafs were really bad for a long time, right? But I feel like in the last little bit, and the press conference just wrapped up, by the way, so we'll really get into it now. And I have another quote I want to bring up from Keith Pelly. But if you just keep rolling like this, like nothing's going to change, right?
You can send me that, Darius, if you want, and I'll get it on the screen.
I will, yeah, in just a moment. Keith Pelly. I did like this quote, and I wonder if Keith Pelly will change the way Shanahan operates in a way. You know what I mean? Because Shanahan was kind of the guy before, and obviously he has to answer to the board. But I wonder if Keith Pelly coming in and being the guy and being a little more hands-on with hockey, I wonder if it changes the way Shanahan does some of his business. And this quote right here, like this was just tweeted out by Chris Johnson. The fans here not only deserve but demand a championship. There's no complacency. We're not here to sell jerseys. That's what people want to hear.
That's a strong quote. That's a pretty strong quote, and I like it. I mean, I like Keith Pelly in general. I mean, the fact that he's even here, and he also made it a point at the start of his press conference to say he's not going to be a part of these very often, and that he's going to make it a part of his job to not be there very often. But at a time like this, when Leafs fans are upset, when Leafs fans are pissed off, quite frankly, they had to do it. And this is a good quote. Is it going to be a reality? I don't know.
We'll see. I want to bring this up too from JD Bunkus, who's been great.
You just keep sending me, and I'll just throw them up.
Yeah. That Shanahan has missed the mark in this press conference, and honestly, I cannot believe. I personally can't believe much of what Shanahan says.
How much of this though is because of the fact that he said it before? Like if this was a fresh guy, it's probably different. But that's not. I mean, that's his fault, though. It is his fault. Brendan Shanahan completely missed the mark. No answer, no transparency. I tend to agree with... I don't know if he completely missed the mark to me, but it definitely wasn't what we wanted. He obviously was, transparency and all this, but no answers, no transparency. He's not loved. People hate him.
At this point, yeah. And I saw a point on Twitter earlier too during the press conference that somebody said it would be great if this was the guy to lead us out of the darkness that like he almost created in a way, right? Like that'd be great. But I just don't know if he is at this point. Like you have to change your mindset. You have to start making changes. We've sat on the same things for too long. And
He did
like
look
Luke
a little
Fox says
uncomfortable,
here
Luna.
too.
I agree. Shanahan looked a little uncomfortable out there. He looked less comfortable than the other two, which kind of makes sense because, I mean, he's the one who's under fire.
He's on the hot seat now.
Easton Cowan's been great. Video coming soon.
Yeah, a video on Easton Cowan for sure. I'll have one shortly. They're killing it in the OHL final. 8-1 yesterday in game 1 against the Oshawa Generals, showing the Oshawa Generals what a real number 1 seed is. But anyway, Luke Fox said, Brendan Shanahan mentions how some core players have had opportunities to work elsewhere and have chosen to keep playing for Toronto. See, the answers like this, we hear this all the time. We know people love playing in Toronto and people who are from Toronto like to come back and play at home. It's happened now that the team has gotten better. We know stuff like this, right? We don't want to hear any of this. We don't want to hear about jersey sales, all this stuff, how revenues are up. We get it. It's MLSE. It's Toronto Maple Leafs. You're going to make money. We know that stuff. And that's great. We want to hear that the team is doing well and everything's going great. We want to see the Leafs go deep in the play. I bet people wouldn't even be mad if like the Leafs just reached the second or third round every year. If they were just competitive, like if they were like the teams I grew up on, nobody would be complaining because you could get behind teams like that. It's just that you get the same answers and you get the same results every year, right? That's where people are getting fed up. That's like, we need change. I can't get behind this team. We know what's going to happen, right? It happens every year. We can't, how do you get behind that? And a lot of them, like when you watch them play, dump and no chase, right? Like, how do you get behind a team like that? It just looks like they're not there wanting to win. It's
Someone said I think it's
crazy.
possible Shanahan completely changes his view knowing he's out next year. It's possible. I mean, I think
It's
most
possible.
people know that. I mean, Treliving's job isn't really on the line, and neither is Keith Pelly's, but Shanahan's definitely is. And I mean, they want to win. MLSE, I'm sure, is. I mean, imagine how much more money MLSE would make if they made the cup or made round 2, made round 3 every year. Like the ticket prices, we're all familiar with them.
Yeah.
They're expensive.
Mark says here, funny how Dubas said last year he was going to consider everything in his exit interview. And then this year, Shanahan said the same thing. I wonder if Shanahan's only saying this because of back pressure now from a new CEO. That's the point I'm trying to make. I wonder if now he's being forced to change his thinking.
Even if not directly, I'm sure he knows deep down that
you have to,
he's
right?
gone. If they lose in round 1 again, I mean, I don't even want
my
to put that into
goodness.
the universe because then next
No.
year, I like what Brad Treliving said.
Yeah. But what is success now, even next year? You know what I mean? Like they make the second round. Like what is success now for the Leafs? Like you have to.
It's a great question for the
goal.
chat. I'm going to ask the chat that question. What would you
What is
consider a
success?
success for next year? I mean, you could say cup. A realistic point where we finish the season next year and we say, okay, that was a productive season. Is it round 2? Is it get to third round, Stanley Cup? What is it? Because that's one that it's a very good point, actually. And I guess
Luna
that's one
brings
they have
up-
to consider. I think the third round would be one where we're like, okay, solid. We can build from that.
Right.
Depending how it
honestly, I think it comes down to effort, Nick. Honestly, like
Yeah.
if they lost in the first and second round, but they looked good and they just lost to the better team, sure. Like, great. Because I grew up on Leafs teams like that, right? So, got to make conference final.
Yep.
Yeah. Finals. Yeah. Like, this is the expectation. This is exactly conference final. Or that's the other thing, too. They haven't won a President's Trophy. Like, they're good. They're a very mid team. Not mid. They're a good team. But in terms of, like, the elite tier, they're mid. They're mid. They hover around the middle every year.
Shane says
so
deep run, no, not being embarrassed in any series. Yeah, it's a good point.
I think that's it.
I tend
It comes
to
down
agree.
to effort, really. Yeah.
Also, if you're new, hit the like button. Let's get to 100 likes. And the subscribe button. 4 videos a day. Something crazy like that we've been doing. So if you enjoy that, then make sure to hit the button. But yeah, there's a lot of time for a shakeup, finding a mascot. Do we think that based on the verbiage that the management did, that Marner is more likely or less likely to be gone after this press conference, or do you think it has no change? Chat, you can answer this as well. Based on what you all heard in the press conference, it's over now, obviously. Do we think Marner is more or less likely gone? There's obviously there's different quotes. What do you
Personally, I think that they ask him to give them a list of teams. I think they start the conversation. I just don't know if it actually gets done. But based on what they've said, I think there's back pressure to change now. I think there is. Keith Pelly's like, all right, the fans are pissed. We got to do something here. So good is not good enough. I love that quote. That's a good quote. It's not bad.
It's a pretty good
I
quote.
like that quote. Yeah.
And I'm hoping that that actually happens and that they actually make these changes if it's. And I also hope the rest of the coaching staff is changed at the very least.
It has to be.
And I think it will be. I just think it's harder to figure out all those guys. And you have to get your head coach first, really, and then ask them who he wants on his team, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah. I think they messed up with that with Keefe. When they brought Keefe in,
they did
although they started playing really well, I think they had the rest of the coaching staff still there, and then they played around with that after. But
I want Marner gone. It's 50-50. I think it's more possibility that JT and Marner are out. He stays. If you read between the lines, it's possible. I mean, you have
I don't
also...
think...
Go ahead.
Can I just make a point about JT personally? Like, everyone can have their own opinion. John Tavares is going to retire or leave.
Probably.
Like, yeah, he's going to stay the next year. He'll re-sign for less. He'll be a third-line player. He'll still be effective.
As long as he's down to re-sign for cheap, I think.
I think he will. Yeah. Well, if he isn't, then goodbye. You know what I mean? Like, it is a business at the end of the day. There's no legacy deals. Get out of here. Get out of my face with that, right? Like, if you want to come back and be a part of the team, you're coming back for less. That's what it is. I don't care.
Yeah, they're not paying him.
But I do believe he retires as a Leaf. I think that's a thing.
Yeah, I think it's Marner's call as well. I mean, they can't. If they want to trade him, last year was the time to do it before the no move clause. Do you take the C off of JT? I think they do. I think they give it to Matthews. I think they give the assistant to Nylander, not Marner. Good Lord. And then maybe someone like McCabe or something to throw the other one out there.
I can see McCabe as well. Yeah,
I think they
even
do.
Riley. I think Riley's getting dumped on a lot for that last play in Game 7. He is a good player. He's been a good player for the Leafs. He was a big part of the playoff run last year. You know, I understand dumping on him for one play. Like, it's frustrating. I get it, but he is a good player, and I think there's still a lot to Morgan Riley's game. They got to get him a better partner. The defense has got to be. I thought they played good overall team defense, but the defense individually has to be overhauled big time.
Do we want? I'll ask this question as well. Do we want to see John Tavares' C taken away and given to Matthews? Mm-hmm. Yes or no? I think yeah. I mean, no harm.
Or who else?
Or who else? Yeah. So yeah, let us know in the chat. The Leafs are too nice. Tavares is okay, not great, but definitely should not be the captain. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I mean, it's Matthews' team. It's definitely Austin Matthews' team. It will be probably for his whole career. But I don't know. They also need to upgrade the blue line. There's so many things they need to do, and they know they need to do all these things, and it's getting to the point where...
The thing with goaltending, too, because we know they have to upgrade goaltending, but they do have a good, like, centerpiece in Wool to kind of go... to base everything around, but then even Tree Living, in theory, and Tree Living comes out and says our problem is staying healthy. So how do you fix that? Where are the doctors that worked on Kawhi? Where are those guys?
But that's also, I don't like that. It's like saying that though, because
I know.
If the team's fully healthy, I mean, they still have the same problems, and they probably win against Boston if they're fully healthy this year. Yes, they probably do because they forced the Game 7. But like they weren't going to win against Panthers anyway. I don't like thinking about that
either because. Nick, I keep bringing it back to this, and I know we have a lot of older people in the chat who've watched the Leafs for a long time. I bring it back to 2002. Matt Sundin got hurt in the first round. The Leafs went to the conference final without him. Alan McCauley was a nobody, and he played center, first-line center for the Leafs, and they made it all the way to the conference final and almost won still with nobody left on an empty gas tank. It's about heart and dedication, all this stuff. I know it's cliche, but it is. I don't want to hear about, if they were fully healthy. And like, it doesn't matter. You find a way to win. You still have... Matthews went down. Okay, you got 3 players still making $11 million, right? And okay, Nylander didn't start the series. You have 3 players making $11 million. Like, I don't want to hear about that. So
yeah, Hellebuck. People are saying sign Ullmark. I think they need to upgrade the goalie position. I'm kind of starting to come to that conclusion now.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Hildeby won't be ready next year. At least they probably shouldn't, unless they want to rush him. Like 2026 is probably, it's probably like the goal.
25-26, yeah,
for Hildeby. Yeah, the year after next. So like,
I would say he's the guy though.
I think so too. But how do they get? They need a stopgap guy, like we talked about in yesterday's stream. But they're not really easy to come by, and it needs to be someone like you mentioned, Jake Allen. I don't even think obviously in Montreal when they acquired him, he was good. But like if we acquired a guy like Jake Allen now, it'd be kind of cooked. But someone like, I mean, people who come to mind, I guess there's not that many available though. Like Markstrom maybe in a trade with Calgary. Highly doubt Marner would approve that. You have Ullmark, he's possible. Hellebuck, he's not going to be available. UC Saros, he might be the most now if Marner wants to go to Nashville.
Yeah,
like there's a few guys, but goaltending.
They can really get creative with it to fill the goaltending position. Like I don't think it's as hard as people are making it. I think they can absolutely do it. They have the assets to do it. They do. True. Like if they want to do it. But I think it's important to get a stopgap goalie. Like do not commit like 6 years to a goalie.
Yeah, Darius, right? Easy on the older, the more veteran. Sorry,
veteran.
More seasoned.
That's
seasoned hockey watchers.
Seasoned
Spencer.
Hockey viewer.
I got you, Spencer. Don't worry.
There we go. Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
Thanks for.
Marner for Saros is one that we've definitely been
talking about it.
But will he want to go? Will Marner want to go to Nashville? Sorokin. I mean, you could see like an elite goalie. Sorokin is winning. I think the Rangers are outshot by a ton, and then they're still winning every single game. G-Hawk with the $10 donation super chat. Thank you so much. He says, let this play out. Thank you again, G-Hawk80. After hearing it was a head injury, I'm more convinced Matthews got hurt going into the boards versus Detroit. Symptoms never went away, and they finally pulled him. Love the channel. Goalies go. G-Hawk, thank you so much. Huge shout out to you. I've seen you around a few times. And yeah, that's a scary thing is that they didn't fully clarify what it was, but it was a mix of the illness and then a head injury. And unlucky. It probably was one of the board hits or something like that. I mean, who knows how far we go back.
A little murky on the description this morning. At least for Matthews. Like the rest were like pretty black and white, and then the Matthews thing was like, I don't know. But based on the timeline they gave us this morning, if nobody heard what happened, game 1 and 2, Matthews was healthy. Going into game 3, he got sick, like somewhere in between, the day in between, something like that. He got sick. Game 4, he took a hit where then they thought he had a concussion, and he was presenting head injury symptoms, whatever that means. So a concussion. And then they said it cleared up the day of game 7, but they never addressed, like, my understanding is that he was still sick the day of game 7. Like, the illness just persisted the whole week, right? Which is possible. So that was my read on it, that he basically had a concussion without saying he had a concussion, and he was sick the entire time after game 2. And I thought he had a good series, first 2 games. Like, the Leafs game 1 was a wash, but he had a good game 2, and they played well. Too much went wrong for the Leafs, but you just have to play through it. I think that's where it lies.
Yep.
So
thank you again, G-Hawk. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Throw the animation one more time for you. The Austin Matthews. At least we know that this animation will age well because Austin Matthews is staying.
Absolutely. As you should. I mean, scored 69 goals. That's pretty good.
Talk about coaching staffs, Brindamore, Cooper. Craig Berube is probably the guy. I'm leaning more towards Berube each day, but I also don't think Brindamore, I mean, Carolina's going to lose. They're down 3-0. Maybe.
It's possible because it sounds like they're not going to take care of Rob Brindamore in Carolina.
They withdrew their contract or something like that.
Something like that. He wants a raise. He wants his coaching staff to be compensated fairly as well. And there's a lot going on with that. So I wonder if he does leave. I just don't know if it's for Toronto.
They got the money.
And I don't know if you can wait if you're Toronto either.
Hopefully wait only one more game with the way that series is going.
Yeah,
like Quenneville. Honestly, like when you think about the candidates for coaching, Quenneville's probably the best. Like when you look at
on paper.
In paper, when you're talking about taking elite talent to the next level. But I don't know if Toronto is going to want to hire him, and the NHL hasn't even restated him yet. So it's like NHL
Which I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, NHL needs to restate him. The Leafs would have to take on that. I'll say baggage. I'll let you guys. I'm not going to get into the situation, but baggage depending on what you want. So like. On paper, yes, he's probably the best fit to take in a team that's underperforming with elite talent to the next level. But there's a lot more that comes with that, and I feel like they might, especially with new ownership with Pelly and Keefe Pelly. So I don't know.
Yeah, I would think we can close up the Quenneville thing quickly. You're right. On paper, it would be a great hire in terms of him as a coach, right? And he can take elite talent to the next level. We've seen him win the Stanley Cup with elite talent like Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. Based on the Leafs' history and what Joel Quenneville has done and the fact that he's not reinstated yet, it's not going to happen. So if you know anything about Leafs' history and what Quenneville has done and the fact that he literally cannot coach yet, like everyone's skipping over that part, the NHL has to say, okay, I don't think he will. That's not an option. I think my nightmare scenario is like Todd McClellan or something, or even Jay Woodcroft.
Freeman dropped a bit on that today, saying he's the second most likely.
Oh boy. So that would be a little nightmare fuel for me, but we'll see. Because I just don't like his system would not be good. I think Berube is a guy. He's number one guy. It depends if he signs in Toronto or not. We'll just have to.
Yeah, Luna, that's kind of where we're at. Obviously, we wish he was available, but with the stuff that happened, it's probably, especially for a younger group. I mean, they're not really that young anymore, but.
No, but I don't think that's.
Goalies are weird and unpredictable season to season. Signing a goalie who was Vezina caliber this season, I guarantee the season quality next year. Not only that, I mean, that is true. But, like, you think of the Jets, Connor Hellebuck, like, every year he's the best goalie, arguably, in the NHL. And in the playoffs, he can't save anything. Granted, it was against the Avalanche this year. But, like, goaltending is very important. And, the Leafs have struggled finding an elite goalie for years. Really, since the Core 4 started having an elite 1A goalie. But It's not that hard to get it's not that hard to get a 1A goalie. I don't think Darius is saying it was easy to get a 1A goalie, but it should be fine to find someone who's serviceable enough until the other guys are ready, or even just to play in Joseph Woll's absences.
Yeah, I think they have to look at that because, like, especially for regular season, it's changing. Like, I think you got to get 3 guys again. Like Montreal was running 3 guys. The Leafs had 3 guys this year. Like, a couple teams are running 3 guys. I think you need to move more towards that because gone are the days of like one guy playing 65 games or whatever.
Unless you're Connor Hellebuyck, he plays like
65. Right, yeah. Which I think needs to calm down too because based on playoff performance, I know it wasn't entirely his fault, but
thank you, Luna. Yeah, hit the subscribe button if you're new. We stream a lot. We make tons of videos in the Leafs, so we mean the world to.
If you want to stay up to date with the Leafs,
hit the subscribe button. Even though we're all kind of sad, it's a sad day.
Yeah.
Yesterday was the more sad day.
Yesterday, I honestly feel bad for Keefe.
I don't even want to use this animation anymore. But so long to Keefe. This is gonna be in a positive manner. He's enjoying his life in Florida on the beach in Punta Cana, somewhere in the Dominican Republic, where he's enjoying an all-inclusive trip.
He'll be fine. he'll get work, and he's being paid, so he'll be fine.
He's probably happier.
But, I don't even think it was 100% his fault.
Bruce Boudreau incoming. He wants to coach for the Leafs.
Yep, I could see him as an offensive coach, like running the power play, something like that. I could see that. That's what he's known for. That's his bread and butter. So I just don't see him as a head coach anymore in the league.
No, I don't think he really wants to.
I don't even think he wants to do that. No.
He is on the tail end of his coaching career, even though he hasn't really coached in a couple of years. It's not about any one trade or player. They have to change the culture. Those egos got to go. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much. Like in theory, it's probably. Like that, I mean, that's the nightmare scenario, is that it's just the guys are unable to perform in the playoffs for whatever reason, like including Matthews, including Nylander. But like they performed, like Matthews and Nylander performed. I'm confident with them going forward. Morgan Riley, he'll be fine. And then Marner, he's a problem.
It's an issue. It's an issue.
But they don't really have a choice because they kept him.
Somebody's comparing Kessel to Marner. I think it's a little insulting to Phil Kessel. Because if you watch them in Pittsburgh, man's a beast. Man is a beast. Obviously not in the league anymore, but that guy was an animal. I love Phil Kessel. One of my favorite Leafs when he played here too. It wasn't his fault what happened when he was here. Like they had one guy. What's he supposed to do? So
Matthews Matthews shows the heart. I mean, Matthews is not the problem. Matthews shows the heart. He fights. No. He fought Stamkos.
Matthews was I forget who it was in Game 7. He initiated. He was shoving him around, right? Like it was 0-0, and he's initiating. Pushing guys are like, I don't know, like you don't have to fight every game, especially if you're a goal scorer like that. But I don't think I don't think he has to. I don't know. I don't think he's the problem.
No, Matthews not the problem. I don't think Nylander is either. He carried. I mean, without Nylander, I mean, we didn't have Nylander, and the team looked, worse. I mean, we came back from a 3-1 deficit once Matthews kind of got hurt, and that kind of goes to show that's why injuries weren't really a problem. I mean, they were obviously.
No, but it's a team. It's a culture. If you want to buy in, you want to win, you can get it done. I'm telling you.
Would everyone in the chat be fine with Craig Berube? Because I feel like that's just what's going to happen. As much as we jump around these different coaches, I think it's going to be Craig Berube. Is that fine? Are we all okay with that? Yes or no? I did this yesterday. We've had a day now to think about it. And I'm also curious, is anyone more sad about Sheldon Keefe being gone? There's like so many clips going around on like Leafs Twitter everywhere of just like him firing up his team, all these great things, and it's like, well, this was too late. Now he's gone. And some people are like, they want to run him through a wall for him to come back. Like the one in 2021, I think they were up 3. I know they were up 3-1 in the series. I think it was 3-2 at the time of his speech, Darius, the one I sent you, and he was just. It was. I mean, I hadn't seen that from him in ever.
Never seen that.
Obviously, the Amazon.
If you can bring this quote up on screen too, I thought this was interesting just from Twitter, just a few minutes ago. I wanted to talk about it. But in terms of the Amazon documentary, if you go back to that, Sheldon Keefe was never like. I don't know why everyone thinks he's this like happy-go-lucky guy. Like, no, he demanded the best out of his players, right? And if you look at the Amazon doc, he gives one of the best speeches I've ever heard. Like we were talking about it off camera yesterday in Game 6 overtime, and the Leafs decided to go ahead and lose that game and the game after that. I don't know how you lose a game after a speech like that. Insane. I thought this was interesting from Terry because Terry has been very critical this week, which I like. I appreciate all aspects and opinions. He says the Leafs this week and today held their coach to a higher standard than the team president. That is something to... Who's next? Last year, you should have made a change. You fired the GM. This year, it's the coach's fault. What's next year? What is it next year, right? Is it the president finally? I don't know. I don't know where we're going with this, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's kind of sad when you think about it. Team's gone through 2 coaches with the same results. It's beyond that. Yeah. I don't know. Like, after watching his goodbye, I feel bad for him as well. Something happened?
no, Umair just brought up a great point. Sheldon Keefe is the only living coach in Leafs history to bring them to the second round. I forgot about that. That is insane. That is a stat.
All right, let's all give our last so long Keefe animation. It's gonna be the last time I ever use it. We'll see.
We'll retire it.
Because we're gonna get I might have to be put into retirement because we're gonna get a new one for the new coach. But Shanny needs to go. Marner and JT. Everyone's saying Shanny is the go. They asked Shanny about his future after this year, and he basically just said he doesn't think about that. He doesn't know.
Come on.
Because it depends. I mean, if they go ahead and make the conference finals and they make the Stanley Cup finals, they'll probably extend him. But it all depends on what changes they make right now. And let's also acknowledge the fact that we can acknowledge that Shanahan changed the culture of the team. He has done a lot of good for the Leafs. Yes. It's just that he hasn't been the one, and that's fine. He can be the one to do that. And if it's not working for him to push them over the top, then change it up. But they haven't done that yet.
I think Shanahan, we talked about it in our stream yesterday, and I brought it up. The Leafs didn't even have nutritionists before this guy came in. He really fixed things. They were a joke before he came in, and he fixed a lot of things, not in terms of on ice, but that as well, because they're obviously a very successful regular season team now. And I like him in that, he can stay in that role as long as he's not putting his fingerprints on the on ice product or keeping things the same, right? That's the thing. But he's clearly going to stay in the same role, at least for another year, and we'll see after that. Maybe he's the scapegoat next year. Oh, great. So we got another guy to blame next year, but we'll just have to see how that rolls on. But the answer is really you got to change it, man. Brad Treliving, 95% of what Brad Treliving said this morning, I'm with. I'm on board. I'm on. So, but at the end of the day, he's the GM, but there's a guy above him still. He's still there. And he, as we've seen in the Amazon doc, and we saw last year, the guy above him calls the shots. It's what it is. It's what it is. So
I could see Keefe going to New Jersey. Yeah.
I think Keefe getting fired really opened up a whole bag of things here.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is if you take, and you obviously, which is dumb to do really in theory, but it's a fun exercise. You remove Keefe from the Leafs pass and everything like that, and you just have a bulletin board of all the coaches available. Let's say for other teams, Keefe is probably number one, definitely almost number one. And then maybe it's, Brind'Amour and then Berube. Maybe Brind'Amour, you can make an argument, but he's not available right now. So if everyone available right now, Keefe is probably number one for most teams. Obviously, the playoff success has been an issue, but there's a lot of teams out there who just want a coach that can get them to the playoffs so they make money.
Yep.
Devils, in this case.
I think Keefe, he coached 5 or 6 years. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. 5 or 6 years. His regular season record, they didn't lose 100 games. It's
kind of like Dwayne Casey of the Raptors. Can never win, and always win the regular season, never win the playoffs. They fired him. Some other team picked him up immediately. And, I mean, same problem, kind of.
Although, with Nick Nurse, all due respect to Nick Nurse, I do believe, getting Kawhi and Marc Gasol did have something to do with that. Definitely. I don't know if it was all coaching, although, I think he's a good coach still. But, yeah.
Darius says your beard's weirdly darker than your hair. You have any comments on that?
God gave it to me, and that's just the way it is. So we'll have to roll with that, unfortunately, I guess. Or fortunately, who knows? But
you can't ignore.
I guess it's not up for me to decide, right?
Yeah, the regular season record. Is there a world where a new coach just is rough in the regular season, and then we struggle to make the playoffs, but then at least there's playoff success? That'd be
every dude. The Leafs when I was growing up to a T. That struggle in the regular season, you finish 5th or 6th, and you sweep the Ottawa Senators, who were first in the conference, and then you move along the playoffs, right? I'm telling you. That's not that you should strive for that, but I feel like maybe I would trade. I'd
trade some regular season success for some
100%
winning a playoff round. I mean, we all know nothing's better than playoff hockey. So I don't know. Shenny's worst contract got to be Tavares. No.
Hindsight 2020.
Because they thought they were going to win a cup by then, and they didn't. Like George Springer.
The Tavares. That's your comparable to the Jays, right?
Yeah, you can see all the Jays stuff around me.
So I think Tavares' thing is hindsight 2020. When he came in, everyone was like, this is amazing. This is the best. We're going to win the Stanley Cup. And they should have in that time. That's why it looks so bad now, because you're still trying to chase the thing that you were originally at the start. So, and he's old. So,
yeah, I know, Ryan. Yeah. It's all good. It was, It's Keefe's. They're stuck for one more year regardless. Berube isn't the answer long term. The issue is the coach's authority. I don't know if the Leafs are really caring for a long-term solution at the coaching position in the sense of they want to win in the next 3 years. So like if they get a win and then they have to, and the coach retires, that's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They want to win.
I do think like I don't want to say next year's a wash. I think you still have to look for success, but I think the year now you're looking at is 26. What can you do with all that cap space?
And Cowan coming up.
And Cowan, and who do you move on from?
be.
And Mitten's supposed to be a really good third line player, and like you know,
there's going to be a lot more turnover. This next year is a transition year a little bit, even though it's funny because it's not like the team will probably end up being the same. So
Right,
like their goal is to. They should still try to win the cup, but 2020, they have to start planning for the future now because clearly, if this core doesn't work and Marner decides to stay, then they have to start looking for Easton Cowan, all these guys to step up. Dennis Hildeby should be ready by then as well, like to be the 1A. He'll probably get like groomed into the 1A spot, starting at like 1B and then going from there. Kind of like they almost did this year. He didn't play a game though. They called him up.
No, they call him up. He's not ready. He's just not ready, and I don't think they want to. I've seen it so many times.
And Nyes.
Like you don't want to force a guy. Nyes too. He's supposed to be really good, right?
He is really good already, almost in the playoffs.
Yeah. No, playoff. But that's a good sign, right? Like I don't care what you do in the regular season. What are you doing for me in the playoffs? As long as you get to the playoffs, you're good.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I think we were both watching both playoff games last night.
Yep.
The Rangers one was crazy.
Yeah.
Panarin nasty overtime goal.
The Canes are the Leafs in an alternate reality. They're just they're great, but they can't get over that hump. I know they go deeper in the playoffs, but they
outshooting
can't do it.
The Rangers by like double, and they're still losing.
Yeah, somebody brought up a good point to me yesterday too. The Carolina Hurricanes have found success the last couple of years. Sorry to take away from the Leafs, but I thought this was interesting. Have found success, and they're kind of like the Leafs, where they can't get over the hump, whatever that hump is. Every time they lose a series, they get swept. They're not even in the series if they lose a series. I thought that was interesting. So,
which is crazy because they could easily be up 2-1 against the Rangers right now. There's a world where they're up 3-1 or 3-0. Sorry, not 3-1.
3-0. Yeah, they're all tight games. Like
and they're out shooting. Like they're out. I can't say they're outplaying them in theory because it's part of the Rangers thing, and Canes play a weird trap and things like that. So it's like weird. They don't play to win. The Canes play to not lose, but then they lose anyway. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Easton Cowan, Mitten. If Mitten can turn into an Anthony Cirelli, I think that's interesting comparison. And Cowan turns into a Braden Point, that'd be great. Cowan's going to be a great player. Yeah, I just don't know if he has a comparable right now, but
Wayne Gretzky, I'd say, is probably the most
right. Yeah, that's
probably the most likely.
Alex Ovechkin, something like that, right? Yeah. Sidney Crosby, someone like that. But that would be great. No, he's going to be a great player. He brings snarl. Played in London, like those guys. So.
A mix between Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby. How about that? I think that's a good comparison.
I think that's the best player who ever lived. Yeah. If that existed.
Gonna call them the Carolina Leafs? Yeah, we can do that.
Let's do it.
Sorry, any Carolina fans in here. That's not really the comparison. I'm sure if there's any Hurricanes fans in here, they wouldn't want to be compared to the Leafs. That being said, they're getting swept as we speak. So,
yeah.
What do you guys think about someone like Gilmore coming in to coach? I know he doesn't have any NHL coaching experience with the coach. I just don't think they're good. They need someone with NHL experience at this point. They already tried that with Sheldon Keefe. Didn't really work. I mean, if you bring in a guy who's never coached in the NHL again for this core, like they need someone who's won. So at least the players will be like, okay, well, he's won before. Let's listen to him.
I could see Gilmore with a team like, I don't know, a team that's very young and like up and coming. You know what I mean? And just like give him that experience and they can kind of make a fun thing out of it. But
however many years ago before they got St. Louis, that would have been
something like that. Yeah, like I could maybe in that position, but he has no NHL experience. So I don't know. And I know you have to get NHL experience to get NHL experience. You have to
Sheldon Keefe.
Be hired, right? Sheldon Keefe, for example, right?
He did really good for someone with no NHL experience.
Yes, exactly. Well, except for the playoffs. but yes. No, he did. So
what's crazy is, and this is obviously not that crazy because it's hindsight, but like if you think if Sheldon Keefe like was decent in the playoffs, and I don't know how much of that was actually Sheldon Keefe's fault, but imagine the different like narrative that would be going around. Like he'd probably be considered the best coach in the NHL if he just won not even like a cup, but one playoff series or was competitive in playoff series, making the second round, making the conference finals. And obviously it didn't happen, but like his regular season record was amazing. And now it's kind of just, he's gone.
I think like 2021, and everyone in the chat, don't say this isn't true because it's true. All right. There was a feeling, even after the disappointment of the year before, the first kind of disappointment with Sheldon Keefe, and you're kind of like, that was weird. Like, that should never happen. You move into 2021, and there was a real sense of, like, we could, like, absolutely win the cup. Like, we could for sure win the cup. There's a clear path.
Oh, you're bringing back memories.
Yeah, there is a clear path here to the conference final that they can win. And then you lose that series against Montreal. And that was the start to me. Not the start, but that was a moment to me where I was like, oh, okay. A couple of these guys don't understand. A couple of these guys do not understand.
Well, they choked a 3-1 lead, and that really.
Yeah, no, but Nick, it's not just the number. When you watch the games, like Game 6, there's a moment where you're literally, I was like staring a hole into my TV, like they don't get it, like they really don't understand. This was not a fluke last year.
And they didn't for the next. I mean, was anyone convinced last year that? No, exactly.
Well, you know what? Like for a moment, I was like, maybe
this is
because they had
the
a
year.
couple guys on the team where I was like,
I guess after the Florida series, I should say. No.
After the Florida series, I was like, it's over. The experiment is done.
They ran it back,
and they had the option to trade Marner last year. This is the thing I keep coming back to. They messed it up last year. We're in the position now because of last year. So
kind of sad, man. Sheldon Keefe. So many clips. It's funny how no one was posting them until he's gone, and now there's just so many.
And now it's like I know.
Honestly, that was the case in 2021. The Leafs losing to Montreal was the worst. Steve Dangle meltdown.
I think 2021. I'm not joking. Is a moment like I know people who stopped watching after that series, like and have not picked the Leafs back up in the same way, and they were like all in on the Leafs. I know people who something changed in that series where you're like, I can't cheer for this.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what it was. An absolute disaster of a series. But it wasn't even a disaster of a series. Think about everything, right? Like, oh God, I don't even want to bring it back up. Like, you're up 3-1 against the Canadians of all people, of all teams. And then, you choke it. And the Leafs were objectively the better team in that. And it wasn't really super close, though. Canadians went on a crazy run, so shout out to them. They got almost swept.
Shout out to Montreal because they were not the best team in every single series that they were in. They made the finals. So, but that's hockey, right? You have to find a way, and they did that. So that's all right. If Cooper is hired as the next head coach, does Stammer come along with him? I said it in our stream yesterday. I think Stamkos goes to Detroit or Florida, stays in Florida, but a different Florida team. And I wonder if Cooper is even fired. He's been there since 2013. I think they see him as a guy who's like a really good motivator. He's won Stanley Cups, multiple finals. So I wonder if they move on from, if Cooper's on the market though, if they do move on from him, which I think is unlikely, you throw every dollar you have in the MLSE bank account at this guy. So I just don't see that happening. So
yeah, there was no pride in that series. That's what I'm saying. I feel your pain, Nick. Trust me. I feel the Leafs. It was just such a bad. It's funny for a lot of people too. I can almost, at least a lot of people who are fans. I mean, even if you're in Toronto, like most of everyone has family or friends who are Canadians fans. So it's like you were going up against them and then you lose 3-1. You don't hear the end of it.
No,
and you still don't hear the end of it. I heard about it yesterday. Actually, my friends were like, they were talking about it yesterday, and I was like, okay, well, where are the Habs? Granted, the Leafs fans, I'm not in a position to talk trash about any other team. So.
No, but that's exactly what it was. I heard about it for a long time.
Cooper is the guy.
Yeah, John Cooper.
It's not gonna happen.
John Cooper would be the guy, but I think he's still signed. I don't think Tampa lets him go. He's been there.
Yeah.
So
Stamkos leaves. It better come to Toronto. It would be great. Power play guy, but like
it would be great in the way like he's older now, but he'd be a guy who come in and be like,
he's won
all of this stuff that's been going on. Like
they can get someone like that anyway. They need to get someone who's like that regardless. I don't know who's available necessarily. Edmondson won a cup. I don't know if he's fully in that same. It's not Steven Stamkos.
Trimming. We talked about it the last couple of days, Nick. Like they keep trimming around the edges with these guys, and they bring in these guys, and it's like nothing changes because it's the core player. I think a coach might help, depending on the coach.
I think the coach will help. How is someone talking about Sam Reinhart? What are your thoughts on that?
If they can sign him, sure, but he's going to want a lot of money. He scored 56 goals this year, I think.
We're still very early in the offseason, so we'll be covering every single, believe me, every single possible free agent target for the Leafs.
Have it.
It will. Also, Shane, we have new emotes coming. I don't know if they're available now. Shane, if you want to check for me.
They might be available, yeah.
They might be. We made a bunch of new ones, so if you want to end up being a member and you want to get emotes and be like Shane, we got a bunch of new ones coming for the next season as well. And as we get more members, we get more emotes unlocked for the upcoming season and things like that. So, yeah. Shane, you can check.
So, subscribe. And if you want to, stay up to date with everything Leafs and free agency, subscribe, man. We're going to have it all. We're going to have it on lock. It's going to be fun. So
hit the like button as well. We're at 83. Let's get to 100. If you're watching right now, just click it.
Please gotta stay.
Martin's Cast equals Reinhardt. Does he want to come to Toronto is the question. And I mean, are they going to trade? We do have the new emotes, Shane. I do appreciate it. We got all the new ones. So if I think it's $2.99 is the lowest tier that you get emotes. $2.99.
Yep.
You get all those. You got the Willie one. You got brick wall.
I have to say, personally, my favorite one is Brad Tree. I just think it's funny.
See Brad Tree living in a tree.
Brad Tree, the savior.
We're gonna have more custom ones like that too. So shout out.
He is in fact tree living.
Yep.
He is living in that tree.
Shout out Shane. Appreciate it. And the other members who were members yesterday. Is this a 50-goal season? Or is this 50-goal season for Reinhardt a one-time, or is he for real? I mean, he's playing with a great team.
He is a great player, and he plays with a great team. So I think he has it in him, but this year was a little crazy.
Kind of like Zach Hyman.
And scoring was up. Yeah, Zach Hyman.
Like 35
I know people who had
goals.
Matthews, Hyman, and Reinhardt on their fantasy teams because you didn't think that Hyman and Reinhardt were going to do that. That is a good get.
Thank you. Check your 6. Yeah, hit the like. And Shane, again, thanks for the emails. We got those done in quick order. Oh, Ben did. Shut up, Ben. Rogers. I don't know how they can make this work, but if they can get out of the Marner and Tavares contract, try to. I mean, Montour is the hypothetical dream.
There's a lot of really good free agents this year that could be a lot of movement because like Pesci, that's a great defenseman too. Montour, he's going to want a lot of money, but if you can bring him in, that changes the dynamic of the team. But you have to move off Marner first. That's the problem. You have to get that cap space available. Even if you don't re-sign Bertuzzi, if you can up the D, I think that'd be great too. But I don't know.
Shout out Hussein. I watch from Cyprus. 7-hour difference in every year's day. I don't know how on earth you do that. So games are what, like 7 in the morning? Or no, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
4 in the morning.
Right in the middle of the morning. Ooh. Good for you. I know a lot of people in Britain do the same thing, which is not as late, but to stay up till 3 o'clock to watch them lose like 3-0 sometimes, that's crazy.
David, the conference is over. We'll have videos after the stream covering most of the comments, but I can just throw some up here for you all in case any of you missed it. We'll just
paste them around.
Yeah,
These are the most notable ones, I think.
We'll have some more in the video that's literally going up right after the stream ends. But
yeah, right after
the stream, some of the comments in case any of you missed it. These are some of the comments. I mean, there's a lot more than that, but these are kind of the, like, I guess, the interesting ones. Maroon to Toronto. Yeah. Ryan Reeves and Pat Maroon on the same team would.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good.
Would not make the playoffs. Can we find a way to acquire Marchand? Yeah. In Sweden, the game started at 2 a.m. Marchand, fellow Canadian. Yeah, 2 a.m. I mean, I'm in Newfoundland, so they're a bit later for me, but an hour and a half later.
Good point here, too. Tavares announced this morning that he's going to play at the Worlds, although he should be still playing for the Leafs in the playoffs. But anyway, that's wishful thinking. But good for him, and I hope he wins a gold medal there. That'd be nice for Team Canada. So hopefully he does that. I don't think he's played at the Worlds in a long time since before he signed with the Leafs. So could be wrong, but good for him. I hope he finds success there and brings it back to the Leafs next year.
Hopefully we bring some good vibes. Might have to make it a goal, Darius, to go to the first Leafs game of the year. So we can whip up there.
That'd be fun. That'd be fun. Hopefully against Montreal. That'd be good.
Yep. Shanahan must go. Leafs are doomed. Yeah, I mean they're not doomed. Like there's a lot of teams that I can't really say that anymore. That I was gonna say would like to be in the Leafs spot, but maybe not. A lot of teams.
What I love about this?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Dan.
No, you got it. I was just gonna.
What I love about this new era, brought up by that a little bit, is we're calling it the Core 4 now, and before, like in the Sundin, at the end of the Sundin area, it was the Muskoka 5, and I love that we have a new nickname for this disaster again. So it's great.
Yep, it's an interesting one. At least we have this guy right here. We have Austin.
He is the guy.
Austin Matthews is the savior. Well, he hasn't saved anything yet, but he'll be there. No. If the Leafs win the cup, it'll be because of him and some other guys.
It would have to be because of him. If it's not, then something is terribly wrong.
Or Matthew Nas turns into the best player in the NHL.
Yeah.
Trevor Moore. There's a lot of different free agent targets. The biggest question now, and I don't know if we're going to find out, is if Mitch Marner is going to be willing to be traded.
That's the first domino, I think. That has to be it. So I think that would be... That's the one thing we got to wait on here. But
I guess that'll come out from insiders. It's not going to come out directly from the team. We didn't expect them to say today, they're going to trade Mitch Marner. It'll probably be speculation. And we know that a bunch of teams have already called on Marner. So maybe.
And yeah, the thing with Kadri too, like you have to trade him at that point, I think, unfortunately. But
how about Zach Hyman?
Zach Hyman, yeah. No, that was, I don't know. Maybe
hindsight
2020 right? Again. $5 million at
now,
the time. It seemed a little high, but I don't know. I think you should have kept him.
I'm not entirely sure if he's a perennial 50-goal guy, but maybe.
Yeah, Shane, good point.
Yeah.
It's true. Can't waste. You cannot waste these guys' prime. Some of these guys, like Nylander Matthews, for example, you cannot. We know you. We know that Tavares comes off the books next year. You can re-sign him for a lower cap hit, and he can be an effective player. I think that's the move. I think that's what's going to happen. Marner, you have to move off Marner. You need that cap space. He does not elevate his game when it matters most, and you need to bring in guys that do that because you have guys already who can score like that, like Matthews and Nylander. You have to get more guys around them who can elevate their game when it matters, and that are good players in the regular season as well. But
Even his 50 goals aside, the passion I miss. I mean, yeah, a lot of those were tip-ins, but I don't even want to take anything away from Hyman. He's playing great.
no, he is playing great. You got to be lucky to be good and good to be lucky. So that's what it is.
Amazon documentary, Hyman played well. Yeah, I mean, they should have. That was a Dubas mistake. I mean, we can say that in hindsight now. But I feel like a lot of people thought it was a mistake in the moment a little bit too. Like he was only signed for $5 million. Like why not just bring him back?
The thought was you had to get a goalie, and then they didn't.
Yeah, well, they didn't. Yeah, they didn't get a goalie anyway.
No, so a little bit of a disaster there. Shout out to Lewis, who is from. He's a British fan, and he can confirm that 4 a.m. is rough to watch the game. Crazy. So shout out to you, buddy.
Injuries and inconsistent play by the core four. Samsonov play in Toronto, still making it to Game 7 OT. It was Toronto's series to win. Yeah, I thought when we made it to Game 7, we had it. I thought it was. Now, did I think we were going to beat the Florida Panthers? Nope. But we could dream in the moment. Anything can happen. Anything can happen in hockey, and that's the crazy part. It's just that for the Leafs, somehow, for 8 straight years, nothing's happened. But
no.
Pain.
Yeah.
Think about the pain point, Darius.
Welcome to Toronto Maple Leafs hockey.
I think it's a good point to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We
Maybe
covered
any last comments?
Any last questions? We got to 100 likes. Shout out to the super chat as well from Hawk, GHawk80. Everyone, the stream has been great again. I mean, we're going to be doing these more. I mean, we keep saying it. We're doing it more. So, I mean, if you want to see more streams, let us know in the chat. Any final questions before we wrap up? We got some videos to record.
Yes, we got some stuff to dive into.
We will have a video.
Have a top 20 goalie starting next season.
Are they?
I think they trade. I don't know about trade, but I think they somehow acquire a stopgap goalie. Yeah, I do. I think they need another guy.
Laurent Brossoit. Thoughts?
Great. That would be great. I would love that, actually.
He's a UFA.
That would be a great fit. Yep.
I
would go after him.
The 100%. Best backup goalie in the league last year. I mean, I guess if you like true backup. I mean, even then, he probably was still the best backup, anyways.
Yep. No, that would be a great option. That's a good point.
Give me him. Great. Thanks for the chats, guys. Great work. Thank you, Luna. Great stream, boys. Look forward to the next one. Shane, more stuff coming. Thank you very much. Any final thoughts? Oh, at least we got some positives that accountability is happening, and we'll have to wait and see now. It's the only thing we'll have to do.
Decisions.
Goose.
Now it's off to the off season, I guess.
Goose and DD, you guys rock true pros. Goose is my nickname, actually, in real life by some people. So, I mean, you got it. Terry knows. Working on a call-in show, Leafs edition, going this summer. Let me ask let me ask chat here, and the answer: do you guys want to be able to call in? Yes or no? I assume the answer is going to be.
I think
yes.
I know what the answer is.
But I want to ask them anyway. Do you guys want to have call-ins to where you guys can call in and give your thoughts? We do have a way of getting that going. It's going to take some maneuvering, especially with a lot of people in the stream. But do we want to see that? We can work on that. But yeah, Shane, that's a good point. Just like the Jays, can definitely get it going.
I think so. I think that would be. That'd be fun. That'd be fun because I love to hear. Everyone has their opinion.
There's a lot of stuff coming for the stream. Just to for the 300 of you left in here, there's a lot of stuff coming, like tons. So just stay tuned for that. There's a lot of stuff coming. Yes, perfect. Yeah, okay. Everyone wants to call in. We'll get that going. Perfect. Might not be the next one. Might not be the one after. We'll get it going for the off season, but that would be great. Hear everyone just. Now, yeah, I was delayed to bleep the curses. It's not that easy, but what we will do is that, we can all trust you guys not to swear, right? Or at least
maybe.
We'll see. We'll play it by ear and see. You can trust you guys not to do that. We can trust you guys not to do that. Darius, ideal head coach for you before we wrap up.
At this point, I believe Craig Berube would be ideal. I feel like he can kind of get the most at this point. You know how to play hockey. You know how to play systems. He can implement pretty decent systems. I think. He's not a terrible head coach. A lot of people are alluding to on Twitter the last day or so. And he's a good motivator. I think that's the main thing the Leafs need now.
That Game 7 speech was electric.
Yeah, I think that's what Brad Treliving is alluding to, you need a different voice who can take them over the hump. So I think Craig Berube. Everyone else on the list kind of scares me, to be honest.
I do think Keefe was an okay motivator. I think he just lost the room. Like, you look at some of his
That's what it is.
speeches, and they were fine. But
I think I bring it back to the Amazon thing all the time. If you really watch it, you can see in it where he's like, we are not
we
good
get
enough.
sponsored
And
by
I can
Amazon
see
with
it.
how much we talk about the
I know,
documentary.
we really should. Amazon Prime. But
Not sponsored.
he said we are not good enough. And the guys were kind of getting fed up with him because they're like, we're in first place. And he's like, no. Listen, we're not good enough. Like, I can see it. We are really bad at what makes teams good in the playoffs. They didn't want to listen to him. Now he's gone.
Yeah. No, McClellan, I agree. All right, that'll wrap it up, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Crazy stream again. Videos coming for you in the next couple of hours, maybe even sooner. Probably in the next hour. One will be out within the next hour, and then we'll see from there. We'll be live again. Who knows? Soon.
At some point.
Over the next few days. And I assume more news is going to happen anyway. So, yeah, thank you guys. We're loving it. We'll see you guys soon. All that good stuff. If you want to check out our video, we got to wait an hour. Go get some lunch. Do some work. Whatever is happening. And then tune into the video. But
Awesome stuff for you.
Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, all that. And we'll see you very, very soon.